we wrote those quite a long time ago, and then we were both interested in developing the project into something that could play live. We both really enjoy performing live. So for a time after some initial writing and jamming, we did add a couple members and have more of a traditional band setup. Still with Etienne and I remaining the main creative in kind of in charge of the creative direction. And so we played live for a while with that lineup, and wrote the rest of the songs on the album during that period. But we actually don't have any prior releases. We went straight to recording the full length album, which I know is a bit unusual, and certainly felt like a bit of a risk at the time. But the album came together without being necessarily consciously planned out, but it more emerged that we had the makings of an album. And so we thought, the songs are cohesive, and we've got a collection of them that we really like. So we decided to go straight for the full length. Do you have things to add?
No, I think covers it.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is surprising to hear as well, because listening to the album, a couple of times through, it does seem very cohesive, like you said, and it's got like a really nice arc. None of the songs are too long, but it's Doom, so you expect that they're going to be 5 minutes and up, but nothing really seems like it's running on too long. And yeah, the single particularly has just like this like immediate, memorable catchiness to it. So all of that is pretty surprising to hear for a first full length. So, well done. And, I look forward to hearing what else is going to come from this in the future. I saw that you all are going to be playing the album start to finish at a show coming up over with Mares of Thrace, and there's another band on there, but I haven't heard them before.
That would be Heron in Vancouver. They're a sludge band who are quite good. They've just put out a new record. They have a couple out, but they're a bit heavier than us, but they're quite good. I've seen them a couple times.
Yeah. So did that come about because they're kind of in the same scene, if you want to call it that, and
we had reached out to a promoter, the Invisible Orange, who saw one of our early shows, really liked us, and has been a supporter for a long time. And they sort of took the initiative in putting together the release shows. So both the release headline are in Vancouver, and then we're doing one in Victoria and Kelowna as well with Mares of Thrace. But it was the promoter who kind of did most of the work, reaching out to other bands and lining things up. So
nice. Yeah, I saw that otherwise, for the most part, you all even recorded most of this album on your own. Was that like a kind of home studio setup, or how did you do that?
On this very couch.
On this very couch.
Oh my gosh. The hallowed couch.
Its home studio is very generous. It's everything on the album except for the drums, which we have recorded in a studio. We recorded everything just ourselves, primarily using Direct In, and just with our own materials, with our laptop and an interface. So it was quite a lengthy process, quite a learning process, and yeah, but it was we certainly learned a lot from seeing the process that goes into an album, and it will definitely inform how we choose to pursue our next album. We spent perhaps more of our time doing things that professionals would be better suited to doing, and we may do that next time. But yeah, it was a very DIY recording process.
It's nice to have that control though, right? Like you get to decide exactly, like it sounds very like warm and organic, and I keep seeing, words like moss and velvet showing up in the, the descriptions, and I'm the kind of person, I try not to unnecessarily like get too into the description of something. It's more about like how this you know, what kind of feelings it evokes. And it definitely does have that kind of impression of maybe you all walking around Vancouver and, you know, going up into the mountains and feeling that kind of inspiration there. Is that part of it at all?
I think so. And I think certainly in terms of like a lot of like the PR package that came with the record, that was written by the label, not by us. And obviously there's reviews coming out as well. And so it's been really gratifying to see people where we don't tell them what to get out of it, but they still like they like pick up on it. They pick up on the same themes, they pick up on the same ideas, the same gloomy weather in it without us having necessarily to come out and say that ourselves. So I think we created a clear image.
Yeah, we started jamming together shortly after both of us independently moved to Vancouver. So perhaps the oppressive gloominess and rain of the setting made its way into our music. We did have the initial conversation about starting a project together in the forest around a campfire though, so perhaps it's been imbued.
It feels that way, you know, and you know, I've been out there. I love it out there. I've had obviously being from Toronto, I've had a lot of people decide that, you know, they don't want to be in the city anymore. They want to move to Vancouver, but a lot of people say that, you know, they expect they're going to lose a lot of that kind of musical, you know, the nightlife, whatever you want to say, and that it's almost like a trade-off for them. But it seems like a weird thing because, you know, when you're out there and you're in all that gloom and you're looking up into the clouds, it just seems like the perfect place to find that inspiration for music like this. So yeah, I'm really glad that it comes through that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I always find spending time, you know, in nature and being able to look out to the sea to be a very reflective time, and you need space for that kind of reflection and feeling, being around things that are bigger than you, to I don't know, to engage in the creative process. So I think it is good. I've done a lot of staring out at the sea when I've been here and been
Yeah.
sad. So I think it's a good setting.
Where did you each move from?
I came from Calgary, so certainly in terms of having level of music scene, level of nightlife, it's been improvement coming here. But
I was living in Victoria before, and then I was there for a couple of years, and I was in Montreal before that. So it feels like also an improvement from from Victoria coming to Vancouver, but not at the Montreal level.
Yeah, well, maybe you two will be, you know, knowingly or unknowingly kind of helping get that momentum going over there and, you know, showing people that, you know, it doesn't have to be one or the other, you know, you don't have to have either hiking or sweet riffs, like you can do both.
Quite an active local scene. There's just very particular genres that really seem to have quite a foothold in Vancouver. There's a lot more of the kind of sludgy stoner doom type acts out here. There's a lot of war metal, which is
yeah,
which is quite distant from our sound. But there are quite a lot of active niches around that you can get into if you become attuned to what's going on in the scene.
Yeah, just gotta know where to look, right? So
Mhm.
I'm curious as well. I love to know, like, so say, you know, way back in the early days of discovering these kinds of sounds and these sort of like heavy sounds, I'd like to know separately for each of you, what was that moment that, you know, for some people they say, you know, I had a relative who had a bunch of Iron Maiden CDs in their basement, and I found their stash, and it just woke me up. So whichever one of you wants to go first, what was that kind of, you know, maybe youthful moment where you had your eyes open to this kind of music?
I mean, for me, it was definitely my older sister. She got into metal first, and when you're young and you're not necessarily attuned to the outside world as much, but you've got like older siblings who are, and sort of that sort of your whatever they're into kind of trickles down through the family a bit. And she got very into symphonic metal, and particularly Nightwish is the band I remember her bringing home. That would have been around when Dark Passion Play came out. and that record being kind of my first real metal record that I listened to, and I said like, wow, this is exciting, cool. I was like probably like grade 5 or grade 6 at the time, but still love Nightwish. But
yeah, it's hard to pinpoint an exact moment. I grew up in a household where there was a lot of like really classic rock and early metal and prog playing. I grew up in a very Rush heavy household, and there was plenty of Sabbath and Rainbow playing. So I had I think I had an ear for heavier sounds from quite a young age, but I got more enthusiastically into metal, more rabidly into metal when I was probably about 13, and it was definitely it was melodic death metal bands and bands with neoclassical elements in it that started to really excite me about metal. Since I grew up playing cello, so seeing and really loving classical music, and so seeing those albums, seeing those elements in metal just seemed like such an exciting revelation to me. I definitely clearly remember listening to Hate Breeder by Children of Bodom, and recognizing the little bits of classical songs that they were quoting. And I was pretty fanatically into metal, and spread into different genres shortly after that. I played in metal bands all through my teenage years. But it's hard to, I don't have a memory of someone like putting in a Cannibal Corpse tape or something.
Yeah, that'd be quite a shocker.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice to hear, because I was curious as well for you, Soren, with the cello background. Was there that kind of duality going on where you had people saying like, oh, if you're a classical cellist, you can't be listening to Cannibal Corpse because it's too, primitive or whatever. Like people have these weird perceptions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's always really nice to see those lines blurring. So similarly now, would you say that there are any bands that maybe like, if you had a chance to get on and be paired with and tour with whoever, are there a couple of bands that come to mind for you?
I think the classic pairing of bands that we get compared to is My Dying Bride and Candlemass, which are bands that we certainly both worship and draw very heavily from. Probably Candlemass more so for myself, and My Dying Bride more so for Etienne. But those are both bands that are so formative and inspiring to the type of music that we play, and have been doing so for decades. And it's I'm certainly thinking about both of those bands when I'm writing. So I think those would be ones for me.
yeah, no, those would be the dream bands to tour with. It's tough in terms of like there's a lot of cool things happening, certainly in terms of more realistic tour partners.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't necessarily feel like there's a ton of bands doing exactly what we're doing right now, at least not in our area of the world. It's like we're really excited about getting to go do the dates with Mares of Thrace, for example, but I think that they have a very different spin on Doom than we do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also kind of fun, brings a couple different people out to the shows, and kind of makes for a real change of atmosphere as you shift from band to band, rather than feeling like you're watching the same band 5 times in a row.
Yeah,
it's been really great to connect with others who are making this more epic style doom, since it's a bit more spread out. I met the vocalist from Concilium, which is a very cool emerging epic doom band from the States, and it's been Paris and I have kept in touch, certainly, and have chatted about how it'd be great to one day play together. But it's at least right now, it seems like a matter of drawing people from quite distant quite distant locations, but maybe it'll come to pass someday.
Yeah, you never know, right? There's so many things that, you know, are potentially out there. Etienne, I'm glad that you mentioned that, you know, like finding a doom band, first of all, it has this sort of like epic sound that in itself is unusual. And then also for Vancouver, Soren, like you mentioned, you know, there's pockets of other things, but I was definitely surprised, and part of that is why I, you know, dove in and I was like, I gotta hear this. So I'm glad that, you know, that's something that you're aware of too. But, you know, I see it more as like, you know, maybe you're on the forefront of something, you know, and not having, you know, 10 or 12 other bands around that are kind of doing the same thing. You know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It puts you in a really unique position.
Yeah, like it certainly right now feels like there's sort of a like there's a lot of cool doom stuff happening, and like on our label $20 Spin, we've got bands like Dream Unending and Worm, where it's like I think it makes a lot of sense to have us on the same label. And like when the Worm reissue came out, like we saw a burst of interest on the site of people checking that out and then also checking us out. But at the same time, it feels like we really have our own lane in the context of those bands. It's not like we make sense together, but we also don't like on the same label, but we feel very distinct. So that's a great space to be in, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I was obsessed with that Worm record, and I definitely you know, I don't try to say that I'm like always on top of every new release, but when that came out, I was just blown away by that sound. So yeah, I was really happy to see, you know, $20 Spin like really doing a good job of keeping things really you know, like you say, kind of like everything works together, but each band that is released is not, you know, a clone of the other one, you know, which can happen if you're deep into death metal like I tend to be sometimes.
Yeah, especially with the huge rise in, you know, like new wave, old school death metal happening right now. I think, you know, $20 Spin has supported, you know, great bands who've made a big impact in that scene, like Tomb Mold, but they certainly are very intentional about maintaining a diverse roster, not necessarily just you know, riding on trends, but they've Dave is a very curated roster with so it's yeah, of course it's a joy for us to be included on that. It's a very cool kind of approach to the label.
Yeah, planetary clairvoyance, another just like those things they'll keep you going, you know, you'd be like, oh, not another death metal album, but then you hear something like that and you're like, oh, okay. That being said too, I'm kind of curious, let's say that you have the freedom to go and play wherever you want, you know, whether it's in Canada, in the States, or worldwide. Are there any spots or cities that you particularly feel drawn to, like you really want to bring the sound there?
I'd love to get to leave Canada at all. Like this is my first serious project that's developed meaningful traction. Like this mini tour will be like my first time leaving my hometown with a project at all. So it's honestly, I'm just excited by the prospect that we might be able to have any kind of opportunities far flung. I think it'd be a dream to go to Europe. In terms of like picking out particular cities, just like wherever people want to hear us.
I lived in Denmark for a time and had the opportunity to go to a lot of amazing shows there, and the sheer density of shows and venues and festivals is really overwhelming, and I love the chance to go to some kind of like more mid-scale festivals over there. I went to Prophecy Fest which is held in a cave, and so I think if an opportunity ever arose for us to play in this gigantic cave in Germany, that's a pretty dreamy venue. Very strange sound, but it's you know, it was a really amazing experience seeing bands play there. And
Cavernous riffs.
Yes, very, very cavernous. And
I wonder actually, because it so happens that my friends in Voller, who are a duo, really, like they're a songwriting duo, they played that fest. I wonder if you went to that year.
I think that was the year I went in 2019. I feel like they played it in 20.
I think it was earlier. Yeah.
Earlier, but yeah, I'm definitely aware of them. Our the Markov Soroka, who mixed and mastered our album, has multiple projects on Prophecy. So yeah, we looked at all of it.
I couldn't help, like I made the comparison just because they've become close friends of mine over time, and I was like, oh, Laura would really like this, and I just noticed I just noticed your Swallow the Sun shirt, Etienne, as well, and I think that would be a great pairing. That would be so good. Like
we did get a chance to play with them once, just do the local opener gig when they came on their North American headliner supporting Moonflowers. So that was a absolute dream, because they're one of my biggest influences. So
yeah, awesome. So I don't want to push us to the end of I feel like we're gonna get told off by Zoom in a second and cut off, but just such a pleasure hearing the album. You guys, you're really doing something that's beautiful, and it's a gift, so thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And I hope that we'll get the chance to run into each other, again, or in person. And I'll do my best to, review an album, but usually I prefer to, grab some sound bites from, our conversations and let people know what it's about that way, the most organic way possible, straight from the creators. So thank you so much again. And so we'll be posting on Hellbound.ca, which is a mostly Canadian, mostly print blog. And I'll be posting links as well on my Instagram, which is @riffsdon'tlie. So watch out for that.
Well, thank you.
Cool. Thank you for thank you for the warm words about our album. It definitely really means a lot, and still feels quite surreal that people are taking this much time to really engage with the album, and really means a lot to us. So thanks.
Yeah, there's a lyric in there too. This is only the beginning, right? So that's very appropriate.
There you go.
True.
It's really an earworm. Like I'm not exaggerating it. I have no reason to tell you, but it's really in there. So I think you have lots ahead of you.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's still very exciting and new to us. We spent so much time working on this record. We spent so much time building this world, and now finally to have it out there and have people engaging with it has been really, really exciting. So we're very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, you guys, will enjoy the rest of your day. I'm gonna head back to my coffee and hope to talk to you in the future.
Yeah, good luck in that Montreal winter. Don't fall down.